Perfect. So Mutual, you are recording. You are good to go. Go ahead and start it.
Well, thanks everybody for joining us tonight. Tonight, for our July Uncorked, we're going to talk about wine buying and value and kind of pricing and the strategy of like retail. I know that was the big topic that everyone wanted to talk about last week or last month when we went over it. So I went kind of before class and I went and I shopped Costco, Bevmo, and Total Wine up here in Sacramento to get the basics of kind of comparison of price points of some very select bottles. And basically that way you guys can kind of go into these retailers as more educated and understanding of what you're looking at as far as, you know, if you're looking at a price point that sees 97 cents, what does that really mean versus, you know, or, you know, is Costco blowing something out that isn't really that amazing, or are they just getting bulk buys, this and that. So that's kind of what we're really going to focus on this evening. And then I've got a list of the major categories and different price points that we'll talk at the end of, you know, your under $10 bottles, your $10 to $20 bottles, and then your $21 to $40 bottles. I didn't get too crazy with any of the, you know, collector bottles, you know, a couple grand or not. If you have questions on those kind of wines, definitely throw it out at me and I'll tell you the best I can and where to find them. So with that though, there were several wines that I wanted to taste with everybody live. And did anybody get a chance from the list that Brittany sent out earlier this week? Judy, I think you said that you got a couple of them. Which ones?
Yeah, we bought the reds. We bought
we bought the 3 reds.
So the Alexander Valley Cab, Paul, Merlot, and the Sagacia is in. Perfect. Anybody else? No? Is anybody else drinking tonight, or is it just going to be us? Okay.
We're drinking.
We're drinking.
Perfect. We'll talk about what everybody's drinking then kind of throughout, because I've got one of the other wines open, but I've got all the wines that I'd posted on that list. So if anyone has any questions about them or any of the other varietals that we talk about at the end here, you know, shout away. So kind of getting into it here though. So alphabetically wise, we'll start with Bevmo. How many people shop at Bevmo?
Yeah, we do.
We do.
Yeah. Is there any particular reason why you shop at Bevmo versus the market on West or Total or Costco or any of your Vons or anything else?
Well, one thing, we can go get it and at curbside and it flows. That price point is okay. We actually like Total Wine better, but we do shop Bevmo.
Well,
And
Bevmo is
5
closer
cent
to everybody.
sale.
Yeah, and the 5 cent sale.
Yeah.
And Bevmo is over off Clovis and Herndon, so it's a little closer to everybody over in the development, I'm assuming, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's, hey, win for them. So Bevmo was kind of one of the first retailers in the U.S., specifically on the West Coast here, to have a specialty retail as focused on wine and spirits. Now, having said that, in my opinion, I don't think have really moved with the times as much, realizing that there's so many now online retailers and other competitors, but they are for sure known and will always be known as one of the first on the West Coast to have that specialty retail. Pricing wise, I'm assuming everybody that does shop there is a Club Bev member.
Yeah.
Yes.
Perfect. If you're not, it's kind of pointless almost. You might as well just shop at your local grocery store because the markup is normally that 1.5 times above the Club Bev price, which Bevmo does a really good job of staying very consistent. I will say that ultimately, they are anywhere from that 30 to 40% in normal retail markup. So in a retail sense, your markup above cost of what the distributor is going to sell to them is going to be anywhere from 30 to 40% up from what the cost is. That's kind of just a standard rule of thumb. There are definitely some products out there that are a little bit less and a little bit more, depending on how rare it is and how hard it is to get in. But that 10% swing between 30 and 40 is your general rule of thumb. There also, something to know with their other competitors. You've got your Costco and your Total Wine. Ultimately, their Club Bev, from going around and spending a couple hours at each one of these stores, they were within 50 cents. I would say rough comparison of price point. Normally that 50 cent more than Total Wine or Costco. But BevMo was one of the first to create private labels in a lot of sense, with a lot of the big companies. You've got your O'Neill Vintners, you've got your Gallo, Constellation, your wine group. And that's how they have created the 5-cent wines. So your Unruly, any of these other wines, you buy a bottle, you get your second one for 5 cents. Swing and deal, ultimately. The thing to know about these is they are all private labels with them. You will not be able to find these products in any other stores. That's how they get their money. That's how they get their marketing. Yes.
Where do the grapes come from, Mitch?
Very much Central Valley, depending on the bottle of wine. O'Neill Vintners is out of Parlier. Gallo is in Modesto. Constellation is anywhere from Madera down to Bakersfield. Those are the 3 big companies that do all their private labels.
Okay. So Unruly is the BevMo private label?
Unruly is it is their like pedestal label that's what they really go. They made that in comparison specifically initially to rival Apothic. That was their initial release to get against Gallo with Apothic.
Okay, so the Unruly grapes come from, that sounds kind of silly. The Unruly grapes come from Central Valley.
Yes.
Okay.
Judy?
Yeah, so, but the 5-cent ones, they're not just their private labels, are they? Because we get other ones.
Everything that they've got on their 5-cent sale, they have negotiated contracts that they have as a private, like they're the ones that operate and control those labels. You will every once in a while find them in a grocery like Vaughn's or Rayleigh's or Albertsons or whatever.
Yeah, because I have, yeah.
I would be willing to bet 8 out of 9 times, though, it's all just going purely to the BevMos. And the only time that they will hit those other groceries is if they aren't hitting the quotas that are coming from those wineries, O'Neill, Constellation Wine Group, or whatever, of moving the volume. So they have to offload it. But they're the ones who own and operate the labels.
Okay.
So that's BevMo, kind of in a nutshell. Then you have Costco. Does everybody have a Costco membership?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, for sure.
Yep. Now, the biggest thing that Costco, I think, is crazy that a lot of people don't know about is you actually do not have to have in California a membership to buy liquor or alcohol there. You can go in, no membership, and buy any booze you want out of that store. In California law, it is illegal for memberships that are open to the public memberships to withhold alcohol sales from non-members. So if that's the only reason why you have a membership, yeah, if that's the only reason why you have one, cancel your membership because you can still go in there.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So Costco is definitely, I mean, they're the warehouse store, right? The discount, big bulk, everybody's been to Costco, seen the warehouses, done the samples. They made it big, then you got Sam's Club and a couple of the other big membership stores too. Costco is really unique in a lot of cases though, because every single one of their warehouses buy individually. So there's a West Coast buyer ultimately. So you'll have like your big staple labels for all the Kirkland brands that they have for their private stuff. But every warehouse has an individual wine buyer that can strike deals with wineries individual to find some amazing products, and give you an amazing price point that you're maybe not going to find even across town, versus the Clovis store versus, the West Fresno store. So that's pretty unique as far as their scale goes, considering how much they buy, because they're buying stuff by the truck. There's none of this. Yeah, Steve.
So I would take it then they're going to go, these local Costco's are going to look at the demand by their local customers, right?
Absolutely. So your Costco in Fresno is going to be buying a lot of Fresno Tailgate Red, because it's right there and they're supporting the local Fresno State Commercial Winery. There's no Tailgate Red up here in Sacramento.
Got it.
There's going to be a lot of Moravia Winery. They sell into Costco, their Symphony sometimes down there. There's none of that up here. There won't be any of that in the south part of the valley either. It's all individual. Now, and Costco is also really unique is because they do truly show off what their kind of goal is with their items based on their price point. So if you look at like their price structure of 99 cents, 49 cents, and zeros, basically, anything that's 99 cents, that's just a normal item. That's full markup for them, which is anywhere from, this is a huge spread, but Costco will run at anything from a 3% markup all the way up to a 30% markup. And that's in that gambit of the 99 cents. The 49 cents is more of an example. That's any other number pre-9 that is a special kind of, we're trying to move it out. There's product to be moved, so we're going to kind of discount it a little bit. So that's more on your lower like 3% markup versus the zeros. That is a specific store manager price point. So if you find anything with the zeros in the alcohol, that's the managers themselves, the specific store managers trying to move product out of, they're not getting that product back in versus the 4.9 might be something they bring back in, but they've already got that contract, so they need to move what they have versus the zeros. They're not bringing that back in.
So if you like something in the zero, Mitchell, you probably should buy several or something like that because you're not going to see it again. Is that what you're saying?
I would,
Yeah.
especially if, because that's going to be your best discounts because they are just trying to get that pallet off the floor. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You may not know the answer to this, Mitchell, but we bought some Kirkland wine about 3
Mhm.
weeks ago just to try it out. And we liked the first one we opened. The second one we opened was virtually vinegar. I don't think I'd even cook with it.
Was it the same as the first bottle, the exact same bottle, or was it a different Kirkland wine?
I think it was a different one.
Okay.
It was Kirkland wine, but
It
it
was
was
a
a different.
Cabernet, and I think one of the problems was I don't think it got vacuumed. So the second time we tasted it, it more tart. But
It wasn't corked properly. If it tasted like vinegar, then it's got sulfur dioxide to it. So that's something in their production line there. There was a quality control that didn't hit
Now, under
properly.
California law, and Costco will take anything back and exchange it or whatever.
Yes.
Under California law, I don't think you're able to take an uncorked bottle of wine back.
They do not take back any wine.
So
Again,
it's bad.
So caveat, real quick, Steve, unless you're real quick before.
I was just going to say, they don't take any alcohol back. I tried.
No, they don't. Yeah.
Because I got it as a gift one time, and you guys know me. So I was like, oh, okay. And I thought I'd get some money, but they said, nope. Anyway.
So I used to work with the ABC, and I can actually answer this. Alcohol can be returned, but it has to be for a quality reason. So an unopened bottle, no, you cannot return. But if you guys had a bad bottle, any retailer, anybody who bought that needs to return it and replace it for the cost of the value. So, but the caveat with that is you have to bring that bottle of wine technically back with wine still in it. If you show up with an empty bottle of wine and say it was bad,
Say it wasn't very good.
they're going to look at you and be like, yeah, cool. Like,
Oh, that's the way I always did it.
yeah, you need to return it with the product in there because they actually, when they write that off and they send that to the TTB, the tax revenue service, as well as the ABC here in the state. So it is illegal to return alcohol, but at the same time, if it's a quality issue, any reputable retailer, winery, distiller, if they don't return it if their product is bad, then they're just not a reputable person anyways, in my opinion. Yeah, Steve.
I'm just curious, when you said that, do you know why it is that they won't return alcohol if it's not been opened?
Yes, because in the state of California, and actually this is an old Tight House law from pre-prohibition, this is actually nationwide, it's a matter of value. So a product always has to have a matter of value. That's why technically nothing in the alcohol business is free. They can get cited if they're advertising it as free, even if it's like shipping. It always needs to be an included cost, or that's why you'll see like the 5-cent wine sales at Bevmo. You'll see, penny tasting at Total Wine. You'll see penny shipping if you buy a case of wine with, during the holiday season with producers. There has to be a value. So when you're returning a product, there is no longer a set standard of what that value is because of depreciation of where it could have been and what it could have versus what that retailer can stand by its quality at what it was initially selling it for.
That's interesting.
It's again, it's a law from pre-1910 that we still in the United States still fully operate on, which
Oh,
drives
yeah.
me nuts.
Yeah. Thanks for the history lesson. That's interesting.
My pleasure. Yeah. I mean, the alcohol world is still somewhat backdated because no one wants to lobby and no one wants to update the laws because everyone thinks it's going to go crazy berserk. Anyway, so Total Wine, my last one that I shopped at. These guys, in my opinion, are probably your largest selection ultimately, comparative to your Bevmo and your Costco. I was real quick though, back on Costco, the Kirkland brands. Kirkland sources from tons of producers. Your Cab Kirkland is going to be a different producer from their Merlot versus their Malbec. Most of their producers are amazing sourcing in a lot of cases, but also at the same time, again, depending on the price point of what it is, you'll also be from the same kind of places like O'Neill Vintners, Constellation, Gallo, like the Bevmo wines. It just depends on the price point that they're at, and depending, the best way to tell for Kirkland stuff is to see on the back side of the label where it was bottled and produced. If it has anything in the valley, you can pretty much bet it's one of the top 5. You know, the big guys, the Gallo, Constellation, Delicato, whatever. If it's out of Hopland, out of Sonoma, or any of these other places, you can bet it's actually probably a pretty solid producer on a smaller scale that just had to sell bulk juice. They had harvested too much and they had extra juice to sell.
The one that went bad, or that was bad from the get-go with us, was the Sonoma wine.
Okay.
We specifically checked that because we thought, this is going to sound rude, but we thought maybe it was from Texas or something. You know?
No, I mean, there's a lot of wine made in Texas nowadays, and I have heard that Kirkland does, for the Texas stores, source from the Texas wineries. So that isn't rude at all. It's just, you know. So yeah, Kirkland brands, it's very depending on ultimately where it is. And we can talk a little bit more about that too. But Total Wine, so I'm sure, is everyone shopped at Total right over there by Pismo's?
Absolutely. Yeah, a lot.
And then the Pismo to-go food is really good with it.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm going to admit I'm a little biased. Ultimately, I opened the Total Wine there in Fresno. And so I was there from the get-go when it first started. And I remember that first week of opening, Pismo's Franzer was not happy because he had to move up his corkage fee because everybody was just running into Total Wine and then coming across the parking lot, you know, with their own bottles. That
Yeah,
they were,
makes sense.
but when you're charging $80 a bottle for Rombauer and it's retailing at $35,
Yeah.
you got to
The
outweigh
corkage fee is really, minimal,
so,
yeah.
So now it's you buy off their wine list because no one's paying $30+ for a corkage in Fresno, in my opinion. That's ludicrous.
Right.
So anyway, I'm sure everyone's seen their price point. They've got the Winery Direct, they've got their Mix 6 pricing, they've got their 97, you know, $10.97 price point, what have you. The 97 cents, those items, you can pretty much bet the reason why there's no additional discount is that Total Wine is losing money on that product. Those are loss leaders for them. Those are products that they are selling under cost from the distributors just to get people in the door. And with their training philosophy is to sell that wine, but also encourage them to buy, you know, customers to come in and buy another wine very similar in profile that they are making some money on. So Winery Direct wines, Spirit Direct wine, spirits, Total Wine is making about a 50% margin on those wines, but they're getting it directly from the wineries. So the wineries are thrilled because their product is getting moved at a guaranteed rate, but Total Wine is also making some solid money on those products. That's why they do the Mix 6. That's why they do those additional 15, 20% discounts on top of those. Versus there are definitely plenty amount of wine that are in Total Wine that aren't Winery Direct that have the Mix 6 option. Those are going to be in your MSRP 30% kind of markup above cost. And then, yeah, Total Wine has its memberships that you can get your $5 rewards depending on how many points you have and all the other jazz. Any questions on Total Wine at all? No, it's pretty straightforward. Yeah, Paul Brooks.
A question for Brittany. Could you send us the PowerPoint, a link to the PowerPoint or the PowerPoint itself?
Yeah, so once we're all done tonight, this is actually being recorded right now with your questions, but it'll also have the PowerPoint attached. So you guys will actually get a copy of the PowerPoint, and then Mitchell will also be sending over his like spreadsheet of his wines that he recommends at different price points as well.
Great.
Yep, and then it'll also be posted to the website as well.
Yeah, so we'll make sure to get you all covered with all the information needed. So real quick, before we kind of dive into some of the wines at the different categories, I want to really just say that right now, as bad as everything is with the pandemic, which is horrible, jobs lost, all this and that, right now is the best time in years to buy wine. With all the restaurants closing
There's so
down,
many reasons.
and so many reasons, and a lot of different distribution channels closed down. Wineries right now are offloading wines that you had in past years no exposure in a retail sense. They were never in a Costco, they were never in a Bevmo, never in a Total Wine. When I was walking around on Saturday, I found probably about 20 to 30 labels that I represent that were purely only restaurant wines that were on the shelf. And calling the supplier and calling the manager up directly, they're like, look, we needed to get some cash flow. We had to make a deal. We had to offload some product. With the restaurants closed, that's the only way. So in some cases, you're getting wines that you would have been paying a 4 to 5 time markup that now you're able to get at a 30% retail above cost. So for instance, Dumal, has anybody ever had Dumal before?
Have.
Dumal is either from the winery itself, wine club, very, very, very limited independent retailers, or it's restaurant only. And so like their Western Pinot is something that I sold regularly into restaurants, but it was on their menu for anywhere from $180 to $200 a bottle. You can now go into Total Wine and find it for $75. That's unheard of any time in this last 10 years.
Wow.
So it's really kind of a fun time to buy wine if you have the income to be able to buy wine. That's ultimately something I really want to make sure that everybody is aware of, that right now there's so much cool wine out there that wasn't available unless you wanted to pay for the restaurant wine pricing. Yeah.
So speaking of that, so say in the $20 to $40 range, right around in there, what's a wine that is available now that you noticed in like Total Wine or someplace like that we wouldn't have been able to get before?
Yeah, so one of the big ones was Kumu River out of New Zealand. They're a wine that I represent. They were one of the first wineries in the world to have their winemaker actually as a master of wine. And a master of wine is different than a master sommelier. A master of wine is its own certificates, its own institution. And they were selling some of their single vineyards, which I've never seen in retail.
What was the name of it again?
It's Kumu River. That's Kumeu.
Oh, okay.
Like emu, but Kumu.
Yeah, okay, like emo, okay.
I mean, and their single vineyard stuff is like some of the most Burgundy-esque Chardonnay I've ever had. So it's exceptional wine. Okay, so I had some wines that I wanted to kind of talk about specifically with everyone for kind of hopefully a live tasting. I know we're all on a little bit different page, but we'll kind of talk about some of these first before I dive into some of these main categories with price points for everybody. So one of the first, I know next month we're going to do bubbles, but I wanted to kind of have a sparkling for this category that I was able to find. So this is Iron Horse. They're out of Sebastopol in Sonoma. These guys were probably one of the first, as far as a very small boutique winery goes, that's focused specifically on sparkling wine here in America. Schramsberg obviously was number one. And then you've got some of the big actual champagne houses that came in. You've got your Taittinger, that's got Domaine Carneris, you've got your Moet Chandon that has Chandon, and then Mumm by GH Mumm. But Iron Horse is kind of on its own independent profile, in my opinion. Absolutely sensational wine, amazing bubbles. They do make Chardonnay and Pinot as well, but their bubbles are, in my opinion, some of the best. And this is actually a bottle that I was going to talk about in the price point, but between that $21 to $40, this is in Total Wine right now for $33 and change. But definitely an amazing bottle of bubbles. Is anyone going to be part of the bubble sparkling next month?
Sure.
Steve is perfect.
Yeah.
Judy, Halbert's perfect. Yeah, we'll talk about all sorts of bubbles. Gundlach Bundschuh out of Sonoma as well. This is their Sonoma Chardonnay. Probably one of my favorite Chardonnay, and they just make some amazing reds and all sorts of, they do a great Gewürztraminer as well. This Chardonnay is also, sorry, all these wines are going to be in that $20, $40 category for, I feel, maybe not. Anyway, about that $25 price point. I picked that wine to talk about today because they are actually the oldest bonded winery in the state of California. After everything happens, with Gold Rush coming over, they are descendants of a German family that came over, and instead of going into gold, they went into farming. So they started actually with stone fruits, and then ultimately over time got into grapes, and they then got bonded in the 1850s, which is pretty extraordinary. Saint-Cyprien Sauvignon Blanc.
Cool.
One of my favorite Sauvignon Blancs. All the organic, all the buzzwords, all the green stuff. Only winery in Napa that actually has the majority of their production as Sauvignon Blanc instead of Cabernet. That actually focus on a white more than Cabernet or any other red. Absolutely incredible facility, incredible wines. And you're looking price point on that about 16. Getting into the reds here. This is what I'm drinking tonight. This is the A to Z Pinot Noir out of Oregon. This is kind of a cool wine to me. This was a wine that Oregon winemakers realized when Napa won the Taste of Paris, and then several other recognitions throughout the years. And then Napa was blowing up with millions of people a year visiting. These Oregon winemakers and kind of the founding people of Willamette Valley, they said, hey, let's get together and make a wine for Californians. So this is an Oregon Pinot that's very much got the body of kind of the more fruit that California, like Sonoma Pinot Noir has. Absolutely crazy good bottle of wine. About $15, and I think it drinks like a $30 bottle of wine, in my opinion. Sagacio, this is their just Sonoma Zin. I don't know if you can see the label. Hopefully you can. $17. But Sagacio was an Italian family that came over, got into the Alexander Valley appellation up in northern Sonoma, and they really kind of made popular the Barbera, the Sangiovese wines before getting into Zinfandel. So they also have some of the oldest Zinfandel in the state of California that's in current commercial production. Am I going too fast?
Nope.
And then kind of getting into the big guys. Sorry, I got a label that was multi-labeled. Here, I'll fix it a little bit here. This is Hall. Has anybody drank Hall before? Yeah? Like it? Yes, no, maybe so?
Okay.
Okay. This is their 2016 Merlot. I enjoy their single vineyard cabs significantly more, but I think for value, their Merlot is good for Napa Valley Merlot. Under $30, about $29. Hall has been around for a while, and actually Catherine Hall, she's the leader. She's one of the leading female wine makers and wine owners in the industry that has really taken off and bridged that gap of equality, basically. So a lot of respect for her. And then my last one of kind of individual talkings. This is the Alexander Valley Cabernet. Alexander Valley Vineyards, excuse me. This is them specifically. Really cool producer. They've been around since 1975. They were really the ones that kind of created that AVA of the Alexander Valley, which I'm sure everybody's seen, Silver Oak, and all that kind of stuff. These guys were the ones that really founded that AVA and made it take off for cab production. So just one of my favorites. And again, you can find that bottle for about $18. Any questions on the individual ones? I know we're not all drinking together. Judy, you said you had all of the bigger reds.
She's muted.
Judy, you're muted.
Okay, so we got Robert Hall, but I don't think that from Paso Robles. I don't think that's the one you were talking about.
No, this is Hall itself. Hall is out of Napa. Robert
Okay,
Hall is,
yeah.
out of
We
Paso.
just got the other one, yeah, because when I clicked on that, that one showed up. Okay,
Yeah, very, very two different producers.
yeah, yeah. Okay.
Sorry, I might have accidentally done that.
Yeah, it's your fault.
It's my fault.
It's okay. It was a nice wine, Brittany.
Yeah,
Nice
we
job. Yeah. We're half done with that bottle, so we're good.
Good.
Perfect. Yeah, Hall Brooks and then Steve.
Yeah, I wanted to back up to a previous topic, which was Rombauer. We used to drink their Zen and we liked it.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking to one of the guys in Total Wine, or maybe it was Bevmo, it's probably Bevmo. And he really looked down his nose because he said all their wines are fortified. So I'm just curious what you think of fortified wines in general and Rombauer specifically.
So to answer key parts on those questions, one, Rombauer Zin is not fortified. And I do like fortified wines. I enjoy them thoroughly. I very much love port and I love ratafia out of Champagne. There's a lot of fortified wines I love. I will say that Rombauer does use several techniques to enhance the sugar and the color in their wines that I do not agree with, but they sell, and I can't knock them for selling a product that is successful. Now, having said that, I will tell you that it was probably a Total Wine employee because they are trained. So this was kind of my struggle while I was at Total Wine because I had a wine education prior to working there. Most of them that come into Total Wine are only trained to talk about and really sell anything that is wine direct, again, because they make good margins on it. Most of them have never actually tasted any of these other wines like Rombauer or any of the other kind of bigger houses, Kendall Jackson, whatnot. I can, again, for me personally, I speak on these products and I do not care for them personally because I know how their winemaking practices are versus just talking out of my ass and saying, oh, it's fortified or anything like that, because that's not true.
Well,
so
that's putting it pretty plain. Thank you.
That is something to definitely watch out for with some of the people at Total Wine or Bevmo. And at Costco, you're not going to have anybody that knows anything about the wine and the wine selection. Let's be real. But that is something that I even noticed this weekend. You know, I'm walking around with my notepad taking notes on stuff, and I had guys come up to me and try and talk to me about certain labels and certain wines. And I mean, I represent a brand called Schramsberg, which I just mentioned, and I learned this weekend that all the fruit comes out of the Central Valley and it's bottom rung barrel stuff, which is not true. I've been to the winery. I've seen their winemaking. They source from 25 different wineries between Napa and Sonoma only that they've been farming from the 70s from. So it kind of drives me nuts, but just be aware of that. And that's why I kind of wanted to teach this class. That way you can kind of have a little bit more information going into it versus Joe Schmo at whatever, thinking they're going to make a sale. Yeah, Judy.
Yeah, Mitchell. So this probably would be a good time because you know your stuff to say that don't you have like a Facebook or someplace where we can kind of watch some of the things that you
Yes.
talk about? Yeah.
So my boss and I, during quarantine initially, we had actually set up a YouTube channel called Insomniacs. That's with 2 M's. Kind of, we had guest winemakers on. We had different clients. We basically talked about a lot of stuff that no one wanted to talk about. Unfortunately, we got shut down after 8 episodes because our company was a little like miffed that we were talking about so many things and so open air, and they're like, you can't really do that. So there's 8 episodes up, but they're fun. We have one on sake even. We brought in some people from across the world. We had a producer from Italy, down even in South America. A lot of education. But if you're on Instagram, I'm Gentleman Wine and Spirits. That's my normal platform that I post on, that I also post that kind of connects to my Facebook page. And so it's pretty much, I just post about wine and whiskey and sake. That's pretty much all I do.
Thank you. That's great.
Yeah, absolutely. To me, this industry is very fun, and it's awesome because you're always learning. And if you think you've learned everything, then now you're the dumbest person in the room. But there's also a lot of people that don't know a lot. And so the people that think they do, they take advantage of that because if that makes sense. So I really like talking to people about making sure that there's things to know and not know. So kind of getting into the categories here. So yeah, these are the wine categories that I broke down kind of the most, because I kind of figured these were the main staple categories that everybody's kind of enjoying. If anybody wants to talk about Bordeaux or Burgundy or Tokai or any of those other, we can definitely talk. I just didn't assume.
Port. How about some port talk? Sometime.
We can talk about some port. Yeah, absolutely. We'll talk about that kind of toward the sparkling side. We'll do that kind of in the dessert category as well. So starting from light to dark here, Sauvignon Blanc. Do I have any Sauvignon Blanc drinkers?
That's me.
Yeah, it was Marissa, right? Miranda.
Yes.
Perfect. What Sauvignon Blancs are you drinking?
So I like, I drink a lot of Oregon wines. So right now I'm drinking a lot of like J. Christopher and Arbor Hills, Arbor View.
That one.
I mean, I like Kim Crawford, but that's kind of, I don't know.
A good go-to?
Yeah, that's a good go-to. So.
Perfect. So I've got just a couple recommendations then on each one of these categories, and ultimately I will have a spreadsheet that I'll send out to everyone with the labels on them and the price points.
That's great.
But I figured right now we can just more talk about it, because if you have no interest in rosé, I'm not going to talk about it. But I'll send it out in a spreadsheet later. So Sauvignon Blanc, like your price categories, Sauvignon Blanc, in my opinion, is kind of cool because you can get your ultra high end, but you can also find your very reasonable value wines as well. So some cool wines at Total Wine, Costco or Bevmo that you can get. Jewel got at $8 and change at Total Wine, I think is a really nice Sauvignon Blanc for California fruit. Joel Gott is based out in Napa, but that bottling specifically is his California. So he's getting some off the Central Coast, he's getting some out of the Central Valley, and he's also getting some up out of the Napa North Coast as well. Then there's another label called Kiora. That's your New Zealand. So your Kim Crawford kind of esque. To me, it's got a little bit more kiwi to it. It's a little bit more zippy versus that more grassy that the Kim Crawford kind of has. And you're looking at $9.99, about $10 on that one. Going up from there, like I was saying, the Saint Cyprien Sauvignon Blanc, I think for that mid range, that $10 to $20, that is one of the most dynamite Sauvignon Blancs I've ever tasted. Their dollar high, their single vineyard, which gets up more in like that $50 price point category, is next level. But I think for value to quality, being 100% estate, That's a really good one. Craggy Range out of New Zealand. That's another amazing Sauvignon Blanc. They do a lot more neutral oak versus stainless steel, which is really kind of unique for Sauvignon Blanc down there. So you do get a little bit more of a bolder flavor with that grassy. So it is a little bit different profile than what most people think of for New Zealand. Amolo, which is Jenny Wagner. How many people drink Camus? Yeah. So this is his daughter, Jenny. She took her mother's maiden name, which is Amolo from that side of the family, and created a Merlot and a Sauvignon Blanc. I think her Sauvignon Blanc is a dynamite bottle, about $20, $19.99. You don't have to take notes, guys. Again, I'm going to have this sent out to you guys all in a spreadsheet or nice printed.
Great.
That way you can just ask me questions versus worrying about writing. I'm not a professor or anything, but it always just drove me nuts when I was in college having to sit there and write and not know what I'm looking at. But again, higher price point for Sauvignon Blanc, cake bread. That's kind of a classic, very different, but I mean, $30 for that. You've got your Girgich Hills, their Fumé Blanc. They were the ones who, Mike Girgich made Fumé Blanc what it is after Charles Krug, which the Mondavi family owned. And then Round Pond, which is the McDonald family out of Rutherford. They've got a little touch of oak to it, which is a very different style of Sauvignon Blanc. It's a little heavier, but again, $25. I think it's a killer Sauvignon Blanc.
I've actually sat on Mike Gergich's lap.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
I have a bottle
I need
signed by
another
him.
glass of wine.
Let me, I just want to hear this story real quick. Are you family friends? Like how?
No, we were at the winery. I have like two of my best customers are in Napa. And so I'm fortunate to have to go down there, every month or so. And, so one of the days or one of the weekends, I said, hey, I'm going to come visit you guys on a Friday and then spend the weekend and go wine tasting. And it was really busy in the valley that day. And it was like our last stop before everything closed. And we stopped at Girgich and he was there. And we got pictures with him, but you had to sit. I mean, it wasn't just me. It was every woman that was.
Oh, I was going to say, man, this is.
He's a player.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
He's a rock star.
He is.
I'm sorry. That is funny that he made you all sit on his lap, but
Yeah.
that is tea to his character, though, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I still have my bottle saved that he signed. My bottle of Chardonnay.
Okay, yeah.
Special day.
So I don't know if they told you, but Mike Girgich was the actual producer of the Chardonnay that
At Chateau Montelena.
for Chateau Montelena for 1976. Yes.
Yep.
It was after that he told the Barretts that he was like, hey, I'm going to go do my own thing.
Right.
Which is really cool. But he was consulting for a lot of people at that time. So I've had a chance to meet him once. I did not sit on his lap.
Good to know.
But
I'm glad.
that just sounds like an amazing experience and just funny to watch.
It was. If we ever have a wine tasting in person again, I'll share my picture. But yeah, it was a pretty cool experience. And we had gone to Chateau Montelena earlier that day, so I like knew what the presence that I was in,
Was Bo at Montelena that day? Bo Barrett?
Oh, I don't think so.
He's the owner.
Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah, it was crazy busy that day. Like we had to wait almost 40 minutes just to get in to taste.
So Montelena is cool because Bo Barrett is a Fresno State grad. He was one of the first to come from the Fresno State enology program and was kind of the guy that really showed Davis, even though Davis is still known as the school, but he was one of the big student advocates for having commercial winery and all that before Davis did. So Bo is a legend. Good stuff. Cool. So Chardonnay, does anybody drink? I'm assuming everybody drinks Chardonnay.
Yeah.
No, but I'm interested
Yes.
in Chardonnay.
Yes, perfect. What labels are you guys drinking in Chardonnay world?
We don't really buy much. We usually stay rosé and redder.
Reds? Paul Brooks?
Like butter,
Which one?
butter,
Butter. Okay.
barely.
Butter, Edna Valley, Fabulous is my mom's new favorite one.
Fabulous out of Paso,
Mhm.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's done by Tooth and Nail. They're the big
Yeah.
castle.
Oh, I like that
Oh,
place.
we've
Yeah,
been there.
yeah, sure.
That's one of their retail labels that they do. I don't know if they
That's
actually
a
sell
roll.
it out of the tasting room, but it's a good bottle for the value.
They have a Fabulous. So Tooth and Nail has a second tasting room just for Fabulous now at Tin City.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah.
So Chardonnay to me is very tough ultimately to find really good value Chardonnay, because Chardonnay as a whole, as a grape, is very manipulable. It's a very neutral grape ultimately. So, you know, the amount of new oak that you put in it, if you're putting it in stainless steel, if you're allowing it to go through what's called malolactic fermentation, which gives you that creamy, buttery flavor, it's very easy to swing it one way or another. In that case, there are a lot of producers that cheat very, very much. And by cheat, I mean they cheap out on production costs. So that's where you've got the big 100,000 gallon stainless steel and they throw oak chips in it. And not saying there aren't a lot of good producers, but there are a lot that like kind of cheat. So value Chardonnay, this was kind of a tough one for me to find ones that I really would stand behind. So under $10, one of the ones that I would really say, I think do a decent job of making just a nice bottle of wine is Hess. And that's for about $10. They are labeled as a North Coast, so they are sourcing anything basically Napa, Sonoma, Mendocino, Lake County. But their Hess bottle is pretty nice. Oak Grove out of Total Wine is one of their winery direct wines that O'Neill Vintners out of Parlier makes for them. I would back behind that just because I've been to the facilities and I've seen that they do a huge amount of volume on it, but it's not dumping a thing of sawdust in the stainless steel. They actually are allowing natural secondary fermentation for that malolactic to occur. And it is big bulk, but for $8.99, I've used it for several of my friends' weddings. I think it's a great under 10 bottle that I know it's hundreds of thousands of cases made, but I know it's not cheated. And then Knockoff is another one. That one's definitely much more your creamier. That's out of Monterey, Santa Lucia Highlands, and that's a second label under the Mondavi lane. And that comes at $9.99 as well. Chardonnay is always kind of what people, it's Cabernet or Chardonnay, right? That everyone kind of initially just goes to. So to me, making sure to find good ones that aren't oversaturated, that are showing pure examples is always kind of the fun struggle. So in your $10 to $20 range, you've got things like, again, the Kumu that I was talking about, they make a Volage, what they call. So that is a blend of their 3 single vineyard wines. And for $20, that is the best Burgundy value Chardonnay out of New Zealand, actually out of anywhere in the world that I've been able to taste so far, that I think is just a rock star. That was a wine that used to, before restaurant shut down, that was their by the glass Chardonnay, and that was $15 a glass. And now you can get it at Total Wine for $20. Bueller out of Napa, the Bueller family, awesome family. I think that they do a really good job of finding that balance between the vanilla and the oak and the creaminess. So if you do like Rombauer, that's kind of getting you on that edge for, $16 versus $35. And then Aubin Clement out of Santa Maria, down in Santa Barbara area. They do a multitude of different Chardonnays, but just their Santa Barbara Chardonnay comes in at $18.49. I think that's a really nice, clean example of stainless steel Southern coastal Chardonnay. And then you have your Gunlock Bundschuh, like I was showing you earlier. Really like these guys. Nice oak to it. 25. The Calling, which is done by Joseph Carr. He's got one for 33. And then the Barnett Vineyards, they make a Carneros bottling on the Napa side of Carneros for about 36. There's so many Chardonnays out in the world, so it's ultimately what style you like. If you like the creamy buttery, if you like the stainless steel, and more often that $10 to $40, you can find a lot of different variants. Yeah, Judy, you're muted. Judy, you're muted.
I think they're doing that to me because I talk out. I think Brittany's really doing that. Okay, so the $20 one you said that was at Total Wine that it was from 3 different.
That was that Kumu, the same one that so it's a Master of Wine. That is the head winemaker for that winery down there, the Brakovich family.
Okay, so spell that for me, Pete. Lake what?
So it's Kumeu.
Oh, it says, okay.
This is what was their by the glass only restaurant wine.
That's the one in New Zealand?
It is out of New Zealand. So yeah, they make their single vineyard wines, which are, your $60+ bottles, which again, now you could find that were restaurant. This winery was only a restaurant only wine. And now the Village is a $20 bottle that was, I've got restaurants that pre-pandemic were selling it for $15 a glass.
Okay. Would be a good bottle to have on hand. Yeah.
I geek out about that producer. Okay, so I'm sensing everybody for the most part is still a big red fan here. I know the Dalton family is. Hallbrooks, are you guys big reds?
Big reds. Yeah.
Big reds, and then Steve, you're all over the map, right?
We do like rosé though in the summer. I mean, that's basically that's our go-to in the summer.
Dry rosé.
But
Dry
and
rosé.
not sweet. Dry
Yeah.
and not sweet. So
Cool. I've got actually some rosés that are on my list here that I could talk about real quick, depending on price point that you're interested in.
well, we usually do because that's like our everyday dinner wine, our Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday wine.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. So, I mean, if you're looking at that under 10, and these are awesome rosés, I've used them for multiple events. I've drank them regularly. Dory Dix, it's $8.99. It's got a dancing lady on the label. It's all screen printed. It's a really nice label. And for $8.99.
And what is the name of it again?
It's Ori. That's OREEDES.
Oh, okay.
It's like Oreo, but instead of the O at the end, it's just Ori.
Okay.
You've got the Luc Prillet. That's $9.99. That's out of the southern France area. These are all dry, pretty much French rosés.
That's what we like, dry.
That's another nice one that uses a lot more Grenache. The Ori Dix, if I remember correctly, is a lot more Merlot base. Then you've got Chenin des Sables. That's also out of the Provence area, under $10. If you want to go up and I think the value in it is awesome. Definitely a very dry, high acid, very like grapefruit, cherry, crisp kind of. It's called Aix, and that's AIX. They're one of the leading premier rosé producers out of southern France. And that again was a bottling that was only restaurant only, getting imported by Ventus. You can now get it at Total Wine for $17.99.
Oh, gee. Okay.
That was something that I had accounts that was selling it by the glass for like $9-10 by the glass.
And it's just AIX. That's the name of it?
AIX. Yep.
Okay, good.
So those are kind of the big ones. There is one at Total Wine that I really like. It's a Rosé d'Anjou, which is mostly Cab Franc and Grulot, which is a varietal. While I was in Fresno, I actually took that wine because we at the time had gotten some Magnums in on it. And I think the Magnums were like $22 a bottle. The regular bottle is like $11. And I had made rosé lemonades with them. So I had taken the can lemonades, what's the water that starts with an S?
Seltzer water?
No, it's not seltzer. It's the brand. It's Spallamore or I don't remember. Anyway.
Is Pellegrino?
Yeah, that one.
Pellegrino.
Thank you. But yeah, it was a beautiful ratio. You take one regular sized bottle of rosé to one can of that and just pour it over ice. And it was the best like midsummer cocktail that I was ever able to make for people. And people just
Nice.
berserk over it. And it was easy because you didn't have to think about measuring or ratios. You just one bottle to one can. Okay, Pinot. Pinot to me is probably one of my favorite varietals. So tasting a lot of stuff under the $10 is, in my opinion, there's not a lot of really good stuff out there. So I really only have one that I would recommend. It's called Ropeteau. It's actually out of southern France as well. And it comes in at $9.99. Pinot is it's one of the hardest grapes in the world to make and grow. So good Pinot and true Pinot under $10 that's coming out of America, I can guarantee it is not Pinot. It's probably a lot of color extraction. It is definitely that, if it's labeled as Pinot, it's that max 75% Pinot. The rest of it is probably Zinfandel, Syrah, whatever, to hit that price point under $10. So this one coming out of France, I can tell you, I know it's because the producer itself, they grow in a very old school region that labor is still only costing them $1.25 an hour, equivalent to the euro. So it sucks because I know those people aren't making a lot of money, but for a value Pinot, it's the best one I got for you guys. I don't know how to better politically correctly say that.
You didn't do real good.
Sorry.
That's okay. We're
Then you go into Oregon. Like I said, the A to Z Pinot to me, I'm drinking a half bottle, but a full-size bottle is your $16. Really great stylistically, kind of Sonoma style Pinot, but it is coming 100% out of Willamette Valley.
Yeah, we went to that vineyard.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we've been there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a pretty cool site. They, I mean, they do a lot of really cool stuff. And again, their site is kind of more of a co-op because it was 5 families that kind of invested into this concept. Then you've got Angeline, that's done by Martin Ray. Their California Pinot is really nice, as well as the Reserve, which I think is even better at $17. The Reserve, I think, has way more bang for its buck. And their Reserve, I believe, if I remember correctly, is just coastal fruit. And Martin Ray is based out of Sonoma. They do big high-end Napa cabs. They do big high-end Sonoma labels. Good stuff, in my opinion. Another bottling, again, for value to quality, this is kind of what I'm trying to, just my opinions on things. The Willamette Valley Vineyards, again, up in Oregon, I believe I don't know what just happened. Everybody just go away. What happened? Oh, there you all are. Somehow my screen just flipped. Yeah, Willamette Valley Vineyards, they make several different bottlings, but they have a bottling called whole cluster. So they do whole cluster fermentation. So instead of doing any kind of destemming or any kind of separation, they're putting the whole cluster of grapes into a fermenter. And it creates almost a little bit more of a berry, more of a semi-carbonic maceration, which gives you that little bit more of a juicy fruit, but still a drier wine because all those tannins of the stems are there. And they make a really good Pinot, I think, as well for $19. High-end Pinot, I can get you all the way up to, if you want to drink DRC, for $15,000.
Yeah,
but-
we do that every night.
Yeah,
That's our go-to.
I will be there in 2 hours and we will finish the rest of that bottle. But,
Just have a couple of bottles.
That's why we don't drink Pinot, because what we liked was too expensive.
Pinot's really expensive, and yeah, it is very easy to become snobby with Pinot, because I think that for good quality Pinot, in a lot of cases, like I said, these last ones I just listed, those to me, from what I've tasted, for value to quality, are the best ones I've had. That's why I only had one option for under $10, because all the other ones, in my opinion, are not that. If you guys have had one, please send it my way, and I would love to taste one.
Sorry.
That $21 to $40 range, these are wines that I really enjoy, but they're all kind of all over the map, and they're very small independent wineries. But right now they've got the distribution because restaurants are closed. Gary Farrell, they're just regular Russian River at $35. That's a steal and amazing bottle of wine. Their winemaker is Teresa. Gary Farrell, for a while, she is a UC Davis and Fresno State grad. She got her undergrad at Fresno State and then went and got her master's at UC Davis. Gary Farrell is kind of a winery, though, that had some negative contemplation because they never actually owned any as state fruit. They purely sourced out from some amazing vineyards. So you've got vineyards like Hyde, some of the Gunlock Bundschuh vineyards. So they go to the best site to find the best grapes ultimately. So I think they do a really good job of displaying that sourced fruit isn't always a bad thing. Renaissance, they're again out of Oregon. This is a project that Louis Jadot actually started out of Burgundy, which is really, really cool because they started this project to actually show that everyone that thinks that Oregon and Burgundy are the same are wrong, because Oregon and Burgundy are not even close to the same axis line. They don't have the same soil. They don't have the same climate, but they wanted to prove that they could still make great Pinot. So at $40, their Willamette Valley is awesome. And then Walt, which is the Sonoma line for Hall. I know you guys weren't too fans of the Hall, the Haltbrooks, but I don't know if you've ever had the Walt line.
Yeah.
So Walt was named after Catherine Hall's father. And they do several different Pinots along the coast as well as Chardonnay. But their Pinot, I think at $40, their Baby Blue, the Blue Jay. It's a good bottle of wine. How am I doing so far? Am I doing okay?
Oh, you're wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay. I know we lost Steve, so, and
Did we lose Steve? I know we lost Miranda, but did we lose
Miranda.
Steve?
Yes, Steve emailed me. He had to head out, but he
Okay.
said, I can't wait to hear the rest of them when I watch the video. So I was like, no.
Yeah, and
he
that's
didn't want
what a lot of people
to
will
upset
do
the
it.
group. So
we'll
no,
just
no,
make sure to
he's
drink
fine.
more. That way, he has to wait a long time before there's any other information.
That's pretty much the plan.
Just so you know, Mitchell, with the four of us,
It's the best of what
have
we
one more
want.
couple, you'd have a group of students that go
Even
like,
though that wasn't, we got the wrong
Yeah.
one.
yeah,
Good.
I like that one. And I like that.
avidly listening, so you just keep.
Well,
And again, just yell at me if you have a question or comment or epiphany or anything.
We do have a question. when we-
Epiphany.
You did have a question?
No, when we get to the ports,
Oh.
we want to show you something, ask your opinion.
Oh, perfect. Okay, so from Pinots, blends. Blends are kind of interesting because you can go and get a lot of really cool imported blends. You've got your stuff out of South America. You've got your stuff out of Australia, obviously France and Italy. But I kind of focused for the most part on domestic blends. Again, kind of going up from the 10 to whatnot. Grand Pacific is a really nice blend for $9.99. It's made by Rutherford Ranch, Rutherford Hill, excuse me, not Rutherford Ranch. I had your guys'. Rutherford Hill out of Napa. This is their unclassified fruit. So this is everything that didn't make the cut in their eye for any of their state bottling or any of their designated vineyard bottling. This is just a blend for $9. That's, I want to say, at least 60% all Napa fruit, which is really cool. Two bottlings, again, for just an easy blend that are private labels, that Constellation and O'Neill does. O'Neill does Cloud Break for $9.99. That uses a lot of Petite Syrah, so it's not a cab-based blend. It's a little bit different varietal, which I think is awesome for under $10. It's a little bit different kind of funk to it. I don't really like their label, but it sells. More power to them. A3, which for $7, this is done by Constellation. This is coming all Central Valley fruit. The A3 is kind of a fun pun. I forget what it's, but it was 3 A's stand for like anywhere, anytime, anyone. Pretty much just defining a wine that they think that for $7 it can please anybody. And honestly, if someone showed up to my house with a bottle of that, I would totally drink it with them. And wouldn't have any second questions about it because I think it's a good wine. Getting up into my favorite category for this, because I think the price point is really cool. You've got Twisted Paso, which is made by Calcareous down in Paso Robles. Really cool Cab and Zin style blend. I believe there's also some Syrah in there as well, but that's $20. Troublemaker, which is made by Austin Hope. You've got that for 17 and change. And then No Curfew. These are all Paso blends. I think Paso right now for that price point category, you can just find some badass wines. Sorry if I'm not allowed to say that, but
You're
just
fine.
good wine.
It's okay. You can always, mute that out.
Oh, that's fine. I'll just blip myself. It's fine. Another one getting a little bit, has anybody ever had Booker wine before out of Paso? Booker wine?
Yeah, I think we have. Yeah.
Booker is a really great estate. If you all are ever in Paso, I highly recommend making a reservation and going and check it out. It's a pretty amazing property, and they just are finishing up their caves and their new wine, basically their experience. But Booker Winery was a property that actually was a delinquent property. No one who owns it is owned Booker. This was a property that back when California was barely becoming a state, two brothers that were last name Booker, they had bought in the property and then unfortunately had died with no heirs. So it went delinquent and went to the state. The current owner, his name is Eric Jensen. He is he was a band and rock star agent down in Hollywood for years. He found this property to try and get out of LA because he said, I'm tired of all the bullshit. And he bought this property for a steal, pennies on the dollar, basically, because the U.S. wanted to get rid of the property. And he's now put in this amazing vineyard. It's all organic, absolutely pristine farming. He's gone from I'm a rock star agent to I am 100% a farmer. So he has a bottling called Harvey and Harriet, which is dedicated to his parents. 100% estate fruit. Mostly dominant in Cab. This is, again, a little bit more of an unclassified bottling compared to his $100 bottle of My Favorite Neighbor Cab that you can get for $30. Rockstar wine, in my opinion.
Where do you get it?
You can find that. I saw it at Costco and I found it at Total Wine.
Oh, okay.
And I called up my manager that works for Booker and I said, what's going on? How is this now a reality? He said, I got to make money. So it is a bottling that is now in a retail distribution line that normally would not be. Mark Harold, he is kind of the unknown, kind of soft-spoken rock star of vine positioning and shoot out of Napa. He helped develop a lot of the strategy of how to establish Cabernet and best growing practices up in Napa. He's got a blend that was at Total Wine for $30. A lot of his single vineyard cabs or anything like that are anywhere from $100 to $200. But he also has that really cool price point category that's anywhere from that $10 to $30. And then my last one, this is called District 4. I was supposed to remember who made that, but I had a bottle of this last year, and when I resaw it again, I was stoked that it still existed. I want to say it was Paul Maz or one of the other kind of geeky cool wineries in Napa that made this blend for Total Wine for $40 when their normal wines are 80 plus. That was just another really awesome bottling that I would look for if you're ever shopping around in a blend style, and it's cab based. Questions, comments? Did anybody have an epiphany? No? Okay. Merlot. Anybody drink Merlot? I know there's been plenty of movies that said Merlot's not good, but I like Merlot.
I like Merlot.
You guys are drinking Merlot? Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe not the best, the favorite, but yeah, I like Merlot.
Is there a price point that you guys are looking at Merlot at all?
With Merlot, we usually like to stay in the 10 to 20. Yeah.
Okay. Paul Brooks? Same. So on that price point, there's some kind of fun ones. Again, Angeline, which is done by Martin Ray. They do a really awesome Paso Merlot for $15. Napa Cellars Napa Fruit Merlot, $17. Merlot, I think, is one of the best values in wine right now because there's still this stigma that only you don't drink Merlot, but there's still some amazing Merlots made out there. So you can get them for just Merlot as a whole, just really good value.
It's a great wine.
Yeah.
Out food,
It's a great food pairing wine. Absolutely. Again, Gunlock Bunshu, they make a Merlot for $25 that I have blind tasted people on with Paul Meyer. That's a $70 bottle and a couple other bottles. And that's been the winner.
Isn't that funny?
It cracks me up every time. It happens to me every once in a while too. I'm not going to lie. Like you go in there with an ego and then all of a sudden your ego gets shot down real quick, real fast, which is always very humbling. So yeah, you've got the Gunlock Bunshu Merlot at 24. Hall, that's their Merlot. I was saying at $30. Then there's one that I'm sure everybody's heard of, Charles Smith.
Yeah.
He's a Sacramento native and then moved up to Washington. He makes a wine of substance, a single vineyard Merlot up there out of, I forget, it's the Waiku Slope, if I remember correctly, but he makes a single vineyard Merlot for $40. That is pretty dynamite. As well as like his just wine of substance cab for like $15. That's also pretty good.
Not to be confused with Charles Shaw.
Not to be confused with Charles Shaw, because that is $2 Chuck. Charles Smith is the crazy rock star winemaker of the year like 10 times. He's got over 200 wines that he's made, like different vintages or whatnot, that have scored over 90 points throughout Wine Enthusiast Wine Spectators. He's like one of the most dominant American winemakers. Charles Smith makes really great wine for $2 or $4.95 or whatever it is now.
Yeah. So Mitchell, we thought we were getting the Hall you suggested for the Merlot, and we got the Robert Hall out of Paso Robles, and we've been it's pretty good.
Yeah, Robert Hall makes some really good wine. My one, again, not really, I wouldn't call myself a tree hugger by any means, but Robert Hall a few years ago did get into some trouble for some very much environmental problems down in Paso, kind of what Justin did with cutting oak trees and all that kind of jazz. But they make good wine. I just don't.
The wine is good. I don't know about that, but the wine.
Exactly. I just, some of their practices of business I don't really agree with, but they make good wine.
Yeah, no, this was good. It was an accident, but it's good.
Happy mistakes are always a great win, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so Zinfandel. Zinfandel to me, does anybody drink Zin?
Yeah, that's our favorite. Yeah.
Okay. I don't have any white Zin, so hopefully no one's looking for white Zin on this list. Zinfandel to me is one of the most, it's up there with Pinot as far as hard to grow because it grows very uneven. The clusters are huge. They're about as big as my face, but you'll get unripe in the middle and ripe on top and like kind of right there, ripe at the end. So it's very hard for farmers and these vineyard managers to predict harvest time on Zinfandel because it grows at such an uneven pace from vine to vine, from cluster to cluster, which makes it very difficult to grow. Which in a lot of cases, why a lot of farmers just let it sit there and let's hike up that sugar so we can get high alcohol Zin, which there's no problem. If people are buying it and they're making money, that's a win. But for some Zins that are looking for a lot more of that leaner pepper spice versus the fruit hamminess, there's a huge play and variance in Zinfandel.
That is.
So for your Zins that you're looking under that sub 10, you can pretty much always guarantee that you're going to get probably a little bit more of the jammier vanilla kind of style as Zinfandel. So to me, I was looking for that style because I know that's what it is, but at the same time, something with a little bit more of a leniency to it. And then, so Ravenswood out of Lodi, they source their fruit from a winery called Clinker Brick, which have about an average of 120-year-old vines. That's their average across their entire estate. And their fruit that they're pulling from that comes from some of it. It's definitely not an old vine Zin by any means, but for $9.29, that's a pretty solid Zin.
Wow. That's good, man.
For that kind of category. And that was the only real Zin that I had at under 10 that I'd be willing to vouch on. Clinker Brick, having said that, their Old Vine Zin, which is a blend of their Zin from across their estate, anywhere from 80-year-old to 120-year-old, up to a little bit older, that 150, which is their top brand. They have a Zin that's $15 out of Lodi, which is
What was
crazy
the
cool.
name again, Mitchell?
It's Clinker Brick.
Clinker brick.
Yeah, so clinker bricks actually, that is a brick that was over kilned in high heat, and they actually clink like if you ring a bell, if they fall on top of each other. A lot deeper in color than your regular bricks that you would ever see. They were forged in for the Valley specifically because they are hotter to kiln, so they allow a little bit less heat flow, I guess. I got the whole spiel from them one time because they named it after their clinker brick houses. Sagacio again, that's their Sonoma. They've been doing this forever, but they've got some really old vines coming out of Sonoma as well.
Yeah, we got that. Yeah.
And then Saban Vineyards out of Amador County. The Sabans and DiAgostinis, they planted in the early 1860s, mid 1860s. And just their Amador County Zin is $13. Really awesome. And if you ever are in Amador County, I know that's a trek from Fresno, but that's a really great winery to visit as
We
well.
like Amador County.
We do like that. Yeah, we like Amador.
Yeah, Amador's got some cool stuff. So, and for my big guys, these are some names that I'm sure you guys have all heard of, maybe not, if you have any questions. For Zin, my biggest recommendation is Ridge. Any of their single vineyard Zins that they produce, you're looking anywhere from $20 to $100. And you can find bottlings anywhere in between. Just absolutely awesome. Ridge is the Montebello. They were one of the other few non-Napa wineries that were actually participants in the Taste of Paris in 1976. Their Zins can come from anywhere from Paso to Sonoma to Amador to everything in between, and all of it all in one bottle. So they make some really cool stuff. Titus out of Napa, they produce a Zin very stylistically similar to Rombauer. They just, for $35. To me, their Zin just is a little bit more of that kind of smoky caramel kind of flavors on the backside versus just pure fruit. A lot of that fruit up front, but there is just a little bit of smokiness on the backside. And then my last one is called Old Ghost. This is made by Clinker Brick. This is all their 120 plus year vines only, and that's $35 a bottle.
What is it?
It's called Old Ghost. So
Old
it's in dedication to the old ghost of they've been a farming family for 7 generations. They've only been making wine since 2001. But this is all their vines that are 120 years or older.
Wow.
Cab, and then, yeah, we'll get into the sparkling and the port wines here for you. And hopefully it didn't take up too much of your guys' time tonight.
No, it's all interesting. Thank you.
Very good.
Cabernet. Cab is king. Cab is the most grown grape in the entire world. There's more Cab grown in the entire world than some varietals ever in their existence of ever being grown. And you can find some really cool value Cabs, as well as, obviously, I'm sure everybody has seen Cab. You know, you've got things like Screaming Eagle, you've got Bordeaux's, you know, that can go thousands and thousands of dollars. One of the coolest value Cabs to me, and this is actually coming out of South Africa, it's called Excelsior. It's for $7 and change.
Wow.
Cool Cab. South Africa, has anybody ever been to South Africa?
No.
South Africa is, from studying, I've never been there either, but I hope to someday. It is almost like flipping through a book, but if that book was made of pages from 10 different books, because you can turn 10 degrees, 20 degrees, whatever, and look at several different aspects of life. You've got the richest of rich, you know, in one part of this country. And then you've got people that can't afford to have clean drinking water. So labor is extremely cheap, and there's a lot of really, I mean, it's one of the oldest wine growing regions in the world. The Dutch started growing grapes there in the 1600s, but it's still considered a new world wine growing region because it's not in Europe. So really some awesome wines come out of there. But we know that we get them because labor is so cheap, which economically you can have your stance on that however you want. But I think for $7 and change, that's a really good wine. Line 39, which is made by O'Neill Vintners out of Parlier as well. They make an $8 and change cab, which table cab goes. It's a solid bottle for under $10. Would I serve it to anybody that's a huge like cab fanatic or a big wine drinker? No, but if I have friends that will drink anything and pour it up to the very brim of the glass, we all have friends that fill the glass all the way up to the front. Like that's what that bottle is for, in my opinion. They're still drinking decent wine, but they're not drinking your $15 to $30 bottle.
Yeah, when we invite the Holbrooks, that's what we'll use.
No, so this is what I should serve at the clubhouse after everyone's had their first glass of drinks.
Yeah. So after 2 glasses of wine, you get line 39.
There you go.
And they make Pinot, Sauvignon Blanc, Chard, Cab, and it's all pretty much across the board. It's very comparable, but a little cheaper than Bogle, in my opinion.
Okay.
Okay, kind of into the fun stuff. Your $15, $20 or $10 to $20. Again, you've got the Alexander Valley Cab. Really like that at 18. There's a cab called Luke, which comes out of Washington, out of Columbia Valley. A little bit more of that spice, a little bit more of those earthier tobacco flavors out of that eastern side of Washington, which is basically a desert. And that's $17. And I found that at Costco for $17, and I was a little bit mind blown. Because that's normally a buy the glass for $17. And then Oberon, which is made by the Mondavis. This is a really cool unclassified bottling that they do. So you get fruit from Napa, Sonoma, as well as the Central Valley. But $20 for cab. I mean, it's a really nice bottle of wine.
Where did you see that one at?
Oberon is at Costco, Bevmo, Total Wine. Yeah. Triana, this was the dominant label of Austin Hope before Austin Hope made the Austin Hope line. This is the wine that initially was only in the tasting room, and then it was only for restaurants, and now it's in retail, and you get it for $28 and change. Really great Paso cab. Whitehall Lane, $35. Whitehall Lane is an older family winery in Napa, based out of Rutherford, if I remember properly. Normally, their higher end bottles are single, not only just lot, but single vine and single block. They're just regular cab at 35 is estate, which organic, the whole nine, properly grown, sustainable, cool wine. And then my favorite out of the cab list that I really have here is Chapelet, their Mount Cuvée, which is a blend technically, but it is mostly dominant in Cabernet. And for $40 at that high end of what we're really talking about tonight, Chapelet's up off Pritchard Hill, one of the prettiest vineyards sites looking over Lake Hennessy. Highly recommend it if you're ever in Napa to go check it out.
Tell me the name of that vineyard again.
It's Chapelet, and that's CHAPPELLET. All right, and so my last but not least, this is my bubbles and kind of dessert wine, sweet wine category. Does anybody drink sparkling on a regular basis?
Yeah.
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 Okay. Brittany knows I'm pretty picky about bubbles just because I very much appreciate the time and effort that it goes into it. True curation of sparkling wine is extremely labor intensive and very costly. So finding cheap bubbles is very hard. There's no domestic bubbles in this category of under $10 that I would recommend. There are 2 cavas though out of Spain up just that I would highly recommend. And both of them are at Total Wine or the Costco brand of Kirkland Cava. And that came in at $9.99. But these 2 are, it's either Borrasca or Rondell. And they're still traditional method produced. They're just producing it on a very automated scale. So it's not hand riddling or anything like that. It's all machine oriented so they can get the cost down, and the fruit in northern Spain is much cheaper than it is in Champagne. So the Borrasca, my best friend, he used that for his wedding. He brought in 8 cases. I probably drank a case of it that night. I didn't drink anything else but bubbles because I wasn't in the mood to drink any of his other stuff because he didn't listen to me for any of the other products. So bubbles was all I drank that night. But
That's a bad
no hangover the next day.
Wow.
name.
What's the name of that?
That's the Borrasca. That's Borrasca. But yeah, no hangover the next day. In your $10 to $20 range, you've got a Prosecco that I really, really like. It's called Bisol. The Bisol Yeo, actually. They've been producing wine since 1542.
It's a while.
That's just a casual couple years, no problem. They haven't figured it out or anything, after
Yeah,
all
they
that time.
should have by now, yeah.
They own some of the original vineyards that were designated specifically to only Prosecco, aka the Galera grape varietal. They make some incredible wines. I think their $17 Prosecco is awesome. Louis Bouillet out of Burgundy, they make a really great Cremant for $19, and you could get that at Total Wine. That's probably one of the best value sparkling wines I've ever tasted in my entire life. And those are my 2 big ones for that price point category. I focus more on the domestic sparkling for the $21 to $40 range. You're not going to really find true champagne for anything less than $30. So that's kind of why I focused on domestic. I'll do more of the champagne and Cremant and all the other variances next month for the sparkling class if Brittany had me come back. But I had Stromsberg, their vintage Blanc de Blanc. So it's 100% Chardonnay, vintage dated, $34. Again, they source only from the best sites. The Strom family, initially, when they came in the 1800s, they dug out the caves. These are still the caves they use today. Everything's hand riddled. I'll drink Stromsberg all day long. Iron Horse, I'll take turns between glasses with Stromsberg. I'll drink that all day long as well. Just their classic vintage at 2014, $33. Absolutely great. And then you've got Domaine Carneros, which is Tattinger's domestic brand, which is right on the line of 121, right there in between Napa and Sonoma. $29. Non-vintage, but really solid blend of Chardonnay and Pinot. Just really good wine. I can't guarantee no hangovers, if you're drinking 4 or 5 bottles or a case, but I can tell you,
No.
you're really going to enjoy a single bottle or whatnot.
No, we have Carrasco's guaranteed. That's what I wrote down there.
Oh, okay. Well, granted, that wedding was also 4 years ago in my life, so a lot of potential.
You were younger.
But I would still definitely drink that. That would be my Sunday fun day wine if I had that option and
Our
choice.
age, Mitchell, we forget we have hangovers, so.
Oh, perfect. Then you don't even need to worry about it. Just drink a Pedialyte and you're fine.
Yeah, like, Lord have mercy.
That's funny, Mitchell.
They now make an adult Pedialyte specifically geared
See?
for after drinking.
Oh, great.
It's much better. It tastes much better than kids Pedialyte. Trust me.
Thanks for that, Brittany.
Now, as my public service, I do need to make sure to remind everybody to drink accordingly. No drunken driving. Make sure you have an Uber.
Got it.
Whatever. Make sure you're
Make sure-
responsible.
Please be responsible. Don't overdo it. We don't need alcohol poisoning.
Yeah, and I don't need to be. Well, I heard it from Mitchell in that online class. He said drink a case and he'd be fine. I don't need that in my life. Okay, so port or fortified wines or sweet wines. What really would you guys like me to talk about? Because this is a huge category. Port specifically, domestic, like you've got your Quaddy, your Elysium. Yeah,
Can we talk about one we discovered in Paso?
yeah. What you got there?
It's a Pear Valley Belthin Cabernet Franc.
Okay, cool.
Put up. I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah, I don't know if it'll come through or not.
Yeah, I can kind of see it. I've never seen that label before. Where in Paso are they located at?
They're located, let's see, I can tell you the directions as you come into town and you hit the 101, you go to the left and you take a very windy road.
Great for drinking port, by the way.
It was,
We was out in the middle of nowhere, really.
we were at Wine Country RV and we signed up for a wine tour. And she asked us if we wanted to go to a kind of an out of the way place. There was only one other couple and they agreed. And we went to this place. The guy who makes it is this crusty little guy that
Brent, yeah.
makes 200 cases a year, and that's it.
Wow.
And he would let you taste it, and then there was no sales or anything. It was either you liked it or you didn't. But it was ambrosia.
He didn't want to talk about it either way. He said, if you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. This is what I have. You know, he was just really a curmudgeon, but
A real salesman, it sounds like.
he did his
A lot of people skills.
own feeding, his own fertilizing, and he bottled this wonderful port.
It was
It was,
$50 for the small bottle.
That doesn't surprise me at all, especially if he's only making 200 cases.
I think he was
It was
only,
worth it.
yeah, I think he was only farming like 13 acres or something, you
20.
know.
Well, yeah, depending on the tonnage that he gets off. So it's crazy that you say that because Cabernet Franc, so port, I don't know how much you guys know about port or like Ficklin, say Ficklin. The varietals that are used for port are very high acid, very astringent, very rugged grapes. Cabernet Franc is the parent of Cabernet, and that's where Cabernet gets its acid from, and that high kind of like stringent tannins. You need that when you fortify because you need that balance. So I've never obviously tasted that wine, but I can already kind of tell that it's probably amazing just because I know how cool Cabernet Franc is by itself. And then if it's fortified properly, it's probably very balanced and got that perfect rightness of the sweetness. And that's what you're ultimately looking for in port, in my opinion, or any kind of fortified wines.
Best port we've ever tasted.
I've got a buddy who's a vineyard manager down in Paso. I'll have to make sure he keeps an eye out for it for me next time and see if he can snag me a bottle.
Information for you to Brittany, Mitchell.
Perfect. That'd be awesome. Thank you.
What about
so-
some late harvest Zinfandels?
Yeah, so late harvest.
Late harvest, yeah.
Late harvest is it's the cheaper version instead of having to buy a distilled spirit. And Zin is great for it again because during the season Zin doesn't ripen consistently in the cluster. So if you can wait for a later part and get that higher sugar but still high acid, you can get a really cool late harvest Zinfandel. Opolo does one that I really, really liked for a while down in Paso because it gets hot but so cold during the day, so it ripens really, really boldly. but it also has the balance because it gets cooled at night. I don't remember what they're charging for it anymore. There's a couple late harvest up in Amador that I would definitely recommend if you're ever at Andis or Deaver Vineyards. Those are two wineries that make really sensational late harvests.
Seems like we had like a one up in Amador, something about Fate, F-A-T-E or something like that. Does that sound familiar?
I'll get back to you.
Yeah, no, but the late harvest we like better than port. But I mean, same kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, so the late harvest will have the sugar. It just won't have the fortification. So the fortification stops any kind of fermentation. So what it does is, so before a wine can ferment dry, they'll add that distilled spirit to basically cut that fermentation. So there's still sugar in there. Versus a late harvest, it's still fermented all the way, but there's just so much sugar, it kills the yeast. The yeast can't eat anymore. The yeast are already glutton themselves and eating all the sugar they can, and basically just killed themselves by eating to death. So two different very styles, but I mean, you can find some really great wines on either side of them. You know, and then next month with the bubbles, I might even talk about some other dessert style wines that are, you know, fortified or they go through botrytis, you know, like sauternes or anything like that. But port, one of the great ones you can always never go wrong, in my opinion, is Taylor Flaggate. They've got a 10-year, 20-year unclassified. They've got vintages. You can spend as much money as you possibly.
What's one in like the $20 range? That's good.
You can find some really good 10-year, about that 20, high 19, maybe $22 at Total Wine. Kirkland's brand of port, if I remember correctly, came at like $18. And that was unclassified from Fonseca, which is actually owned by Taylor Flaggate.
About Trentadue, what do you think of them, Mitchell?
Which one?
Trentadue?
Trentadue. I can't tell you I've actually had them before.
Trentadue, we belong to the Port Club there for a year or so. They're across the road from Francis Ford Coppola's winery.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It's a little tiny winery, but they really excel in ports.
Okay. What are the price points that they sell at?
I'm trying to think, like $20?
Okay.
It was
It
between.
may have been a little more. We joined their port club.
Yeah.
Interesting. I'll have to keep it in mind next time I'm
check
out there.
that one out. They had, of course, they used the Zinfandel grapes and the Cabernet grapes, and they had a Merlot.
Okay.
And they also had a Chardonnay port.
Yeah, so Chardonnay, that was one of the ones I was going to talk about with Prager over at Napa. They make a white port with Chardonnay. And white port is very hard to make because you not only have your sweetness to try and figure out, but it also oxidizes so much more than a regular like red because the tannins aren't there because the white skins, they don't spend as much skin contact. Best $50 port I've ever bought is from Prager, their white port, at a $50 price point. But yeah, port domestically, you've got a lot of the big guys. Like I said, you've got Ficklin. They're kind of the granddaddy to everybody making port, and they're right there in your guys' backyard, Madeira.
What do you think of them? What's their?
They're legendary. I mean, Peter Ficklin, that was one of my first wine jobs I've ever interviewed for, and he reamed me a new one. Because I went in as this young, dumb kid. I hadn't even finished Fresno State yet. And I came in all cocky and bold and ready to talk about sales and this and that. And I had been bartending. And he looked at me and he's like, you don't even understand the fermentation of regular wine. Why am I going to hire you because you bartend? So it was, he kicked my ass.
He doesn't treat customers that way.
No, not at all. But I also, with that ass kicking that I got from him, I also got a history lesson of his family and how poor and the racking and everything that I will take to my dying day. You know, they've got a government cage in there. They've got the full on Portuguese vats and everything of where the oak staves and everything. The history that comes out of that room and that whole facility is unreal. Quaddy is up there too. I mean, they've been making port since the 70s. Andy Quaddy, I mean, he was sourcing from Amador County all of his fruit initially for when they were making port. That's ultimately who I got hired with to get my sweet wine education in, because Peter Ficklin threw me out. But I got hired by Quaddy, so I learned Moscato and I learned port really well.
Well, we like Moscato. We like the orange muscats, like Essentia and stuff like that.
Yeah.
We like that. Yeah.
Those are, I mean, I could take very small doses of them because they go a very long way, but they
Oh,
have
yeah.
exceptional
Yeah.
complexity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Our favorite thing to drink is Benedictine, but yeah,
I gotcha.
straight Benedictine.
I gotcha.
That's not a wine.
I do Fernet, so it's okay. Does anybody have, I mean, did I hit everybody's kind of like the categories and the price points?
Yes.
You did a good job.
Thank you. I mean, there's just so much in wine. I'm sorry if I took up an hour and almost 2 hours of your guys' night, but.
Well, we had you booked for 2 hours, didn't we?
Oh, then perfect. Yeah.
We were going to do something else, but
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Our calendar is pretty open these days. We're good.
Thank you, guys.
Paul Brooks, did I do okay? This is my first time with you guys tonight.
You did a great job, Mitchell.
Thank you. Yeah, and again, send Brittany that information. That way she can send it over to me about that port down in Paso, because I'm very interested.
And what you think of him, he may be a little bit like Ficklin. And
He's crusty.
when we talked to him about the port, we asked him about Ficklin. He loves Ficklin port. So they may be brothers and we just don't know it.
That could be, or distant cousins, or they're just best friends that went and made wine at 2 different areas of the state. You know, I've been selling wine for about 10 years now, and it is there's a reason why most winemakers don't actually sell their own wine.
People skills, right?
The people skills just are not there. The conception, the artisticness, the scientificness, all that is there, but just being able to withstand a conversation, not so much.
Grapes don't talk back.
No.
Let's just say at 200 cases, he's working mostly on making port and not very much. He had some wines too. I don't remember, but
200 cases.
yeah.
And I mean, if he had 13, so I mean, just
These are
most
small bottle.
yeah. So I mean, you're even talking half. You're talking, yeah, half. But I mean, most vineyards in Paso are able to harvest. You're able to get anywhere from 4 to 5 tons of grapes per acre. For instance, though, in a bottle of wine, it is mostly a cluster per bottle, a whole cluster that will go into a bottle. You can get, it's normally 22 to 23 cases of wine per barrel. So if he should be making so much more if he's harvesting from 13 acres. So he's selling off probably a ton of fruit, and just doing this on his own small project.
Into his
Well,
regular wine.
He was also buying fruit because I think, wasn't he growing Zinfandel grapes?
Yeah, only Zinfandel.
Yeah,
That was it.
Okay.
grows Zinfandel grapes, but he buys from other wineries when he makes his port. And
Gotcha. Well, and yeah, you also got to imagine that port too, the distilled spirit probably in port is anywhere from 20 to 30% of the volume in the bottle. So if he's only making 200 cases, 30% of that's distilled spirit, he's not buying very much fruit. So yeah, he's probably a farmer at heart, and he just likes to be a curmudgeon and show off his 200 cases of Cab Franc port. And
Now I need to get a bottle of that, Linda.
yeah, we'll do a live tasting of that one in December here.
Woohoo!
So we're doing sparkling and dessert with hopefully a chocolate pairing next month. And last month, Brittany and I kind of asked the people that were on if they had any opinions or thoughts of what they would like to see in it. I kind of want to open that up to you guys to see if there's any ideas that you might have for what you hope to get out of that class next month.
You know,
Epiphany.
Just like to, go ahead.
we don't drink a lot of sparkling wines. I mean, as far as we venture into it, is usually Asti Spumante. I mean, and we're
Yeah.
just real virgins when it comes
Yeah, I
to
think you
sparkling.
probably look down your nose at our taste and bubbly.
So, you know, the whole world is open to us when it comes to sparkling.
Okay.
And we like cavas, and we like prosecco and champagne, and particularly and the cava. We've even done a lot of touring in the outside of Barcelona.
Yeah.
In the cava areas, but you know, we really like that. But we like, you know, we just like to be able to know what to buy when we go into Total Wine, and
Okay.
you know, in that
Perfect.
in that kind of price range that you're talking about. That, and usually for us, it's like the $15 to $30 range is about where we like to stay.
Okay. But you like the breakdown of like different categories and
I
stuff?
do. We
Sure.
do.
Okay.
Yeah.
We were drinking cava that one person was putting the cork in one at a time in Spain.
I believe it. I mean, there's
In
some
a
small
cave.
houses over there.
In a cave. I mean,
In
the
a
cave with
cave.
the fossils above your
The
head. I mean, it was
fossils
very
above
cool.
your head.
Very cool.
Yeah. It's Europe, and it's just so old.
Yeah.
Like, we are so young here in America. It's unbelievable how old everybody is, or not everybody, but everything is over there. But Asti Spumantys, I definitely have a couple that I could bring into the conversation next month as well.
Another wine we love during the summer is Gewürztraminer.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
add a few Gewürzes in, we would really love to hear about those.
Okay.
I know they're not really sparkling, although Fetzer's is kind of a sparkle. It's got
Yeah, they've got just a little bit of effervescence
Acidic,
to
yeah.
it. Yeah.
effervescence, that's it.
We might kind of turn, I mean, depending on how many wines Brittany wants me to focus on, more of like a dessert and chocolate pairing, dessert wine and chocolate concept versus just sparkling.
I think that's a good idea.
Because I could bring in, I mean, I could just talk, I mean, each of the different categories, you've got a sparkling category, you've got a fortified wine category, you've got a botrytis, so another sweet style, but it comes from noble rot style category. You've got your like Amarones out of Italy, which are dried on mats, you know, for almost a year before they're fermented. Yeah, I could do more of just a dessert pairing categories versus
Probably pull more people in that way. In that, yeah.
hopefully, yeah. So I mean, I could put together like 5 or 6 categories of wines that go well, depending on the chocolates that Brittany sends me that she wants me to kind of pair them up with. That sounds a little bit more, because yeah, Gewürztraminers, those lighter whites like Rieslings and everything. I'm a sucker for dry Riesling and dry Gewürztraminer. I love them. Again, these guys, they kind of were the granddaddy of all of dry Gewürztraminer, and for like $12 you can find their bottle of dry Gewürztraminer. If you like Gewürz, that's the bottle to try. Cool. All right, that gives me some
Okay.
ideas.
Mitchell, thank you. You were awesome.
Absolutely.
I'm going to listen to your YouTubes before they kicked you off. They're still available, right?
They should still be on there. I know that we were definitely not on page 1 anymore. So you might have to scroll through a couple pages.
Maybe you can send me the link, Mitchell, and then that way I can include it
perfect,
in
yeah.
email to the group.
Perfect.
Absolutely.
I'll
Thank you,
just
Brittany.
send you
That'd
the
be
link.
awesome.
Yeah, that's why you're the smart for the operation.
Real quick, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording, and then you guys can continue chatting. I just want to
Perfect.
stop it because we're going to hit